Welcome back to What Happens If, the podcast where we dive deep into the wildest what-if questions of science, life, and imagination. Today we ask, what happens if the Earth suddenly stops spinning? Let's start with a bang, literally. If Earth were to stop spinning instantly, everything not solidly anchored to bedrock would fly eastward at over 1,600 kilometers per hour. Buildings, oceans, the atmosphere, all would continue moving due to inertia. It would feel like the entire planet was hit by a global-scale car crash. The devastation would be immediate and unimaginable. In Vietnam, the ground beneath you would stop, but the air, water, and everything else around you would still be rushing eastward. Cities would be flattened. Oceans would surge into continents. Winds would rip through the land with hurricane force. Even mountains wouldn't be safe. Landslides, earthquakes, and shockwaves would erupt across the globe. Infrastructure, like bridges, towers, or even forests would be destroyed in seconds. But what if, just for the sake of argument, the Earth didn't stop suddenly, but slowed down gradually over time? That's where the scenario becomes even more fascinating, and perhaps survivable. Earth's rotation gives us day and night. If it stopped, one side of the planet would face the sun permanently, while the other side would be locked in eternal darkness. On the sun-facing side, temperatures would soar to extremes. The ground would bake under constant sunlight. Oceans would evaporate, turning into thick clouds or vanishing completely. Crops would fail. The atmosphere would thin and dry. It would resemble the harshest deserts on Earth, or even Venus. On the dark side, things would be equally grim. Freezing temperatures, ice storms, and perpetual darkness would wipe out plant life. Without sunlight, photosynthesis would cease. Entire ecosystems would collapse. But between the extremes lies the twilight zone, the narrow band between eternal day and night. Here, temperatures might be moderate enough to support life. Humanity's only chance for survival might depend on this narrow ribbon of balance. Still, it wouldn't be easy. Massive storms would sweep across the twilight zone as hot and cold air masses collide. The wind systems would be chaotic, unpredictable, and violent. Living there would require resilience, technology, and constant adaptation. Right now, Earth's rotation causes the equator to bulge outward slightly due to centrifugal force. If the planet stopped spinning, gravity would pull that bulge inward, reshaping the planet into a more perfect sphere. This shift would cause massive changes in ocean distribution. Water would slowly migrate away from the equator and toward the poles. Southeast Asia, Central Africa, and the Amazon basin could dry out dramatically. Meanwhile, cities like New York, London, or Moscow, currently far from rising seas, might one day be underwater. Gravity itself would feel different. With no centrifugal push opposing it, everything would feel slightly heavier. It might not be noticeable at first, but over years, the impact on architecture, human health, and physics-based systems would be significant. We'd have to redesign how we build, how we move, and even how we measure the limits of the human body. Without rotation, Earth's sense of time would be redefined. No more 24-hour cycle. No sunrise to mark morning, no sunset to end the day. Instead, time would be tied to Earth's orbit around the sun. A full day meaning one full rotation relative to the sun would take an entire year. In essence, a day would become a year long. This would change everything from calendars to cultures. Our very concept of time would collapse and need to be rebuilt. Tides, which are driven both by the moon and Earth's rotation, would behave oddly. Without Earth spinning beneath tidal forces, the rhythm of ocean rise and fall would slow and become less dynamic. And what of the moon? Earth's rotation currently pushes the moon away slightly each year due to tidal friction. Without spin, this dynamic ceases. The moon's orbit may stabilize or even decay over millennia, potentially triggering new cosmic consequences. In a still Earth, survival would depend on adaptation. Massive underground or insulated cities would be necessary, especially in the twilight zone. Geothermal energy, nuclear power, and controlled environment agriculture would be critical. Artificial suns, massive LED-powered light systems would simulate day and night for psychological stability. Global cooperation would become a must. Scarcity of habitable land, water, and food could trigger conflict or unity. Cultural shifts would emerge too. Mythology and meaning built on sunrises and sunsets would fade. New stories might focus on stasis, stillness, and adaptation. Religions could evolve to worship stability rather than motion. Our metaphors about time, urgency, and progress might transform into ones about patience, resilience, and anchoring. In this reimagined world, stillness would not mean stagnation. It would mean survival. Thanks for tuning in to What Happens If. If this sparked your imagination, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And as always, stay curious. Until next time.